The alarm clock buzzed at 6 a.m., but Keisha had already been awake for 20 minutes. She couldn't sleep. Today was the day she had been dreaming about since freshman year, prom night. She rolled over and grabbed her phone, scrolling through Instagram to see other girls posting their getting ready photos. Her stomach fluttered with excitement and nerves. Keisha lived in a small apartment with her mom, Angela, who worked double shifts at the local diner to make ends meet. Their neighborhood wasn't the fanciest, but it was home. The walls of Keisha's tiny bedroom were covered with honor roll certificates, college acceptance letters, and a photo of her late grandmother, who had raised her until she was 12. "Baby, you up already?" her mom called from the kitchen. The smell of bacon and eggs filled their small apartment. "Yeah, Mom. Too excited to sleep," Keisha replied, padding to the kitchen in her fuzzy slippers. Angela looked at her daughter and smiled. At 17, Keisha had grown into a beautiful young woman with warm brown eyes and natural hair that she wore in different styles depending on her mood. But it wasn't just her looks that made her special. This girl had something rare, a strength that came from facing challenges head-on and never giving up. "You nervous about tonight?" Angela asked, flipping an egg. "A little," Keisha admitted. "You know how some of those kids at school can be." Angela nodded. She knew exactly what her daughter meant. Westbrook High School had a mixed population, but the social circles were pretty divided. Keisha was one of only about 15 black students in her grade of 200. She had faced her share of awkward moments, whispered comments, and sometimes outright rudeness from certain classmates. But Keisha had learned early on that she couldn't control what others thought or said. She could only control her own actions and reactions. Her grandmother used to tell her, "Baby girl, you hold your head high no matter what. You're just as good as anybody else walking this earth, and don't you forget it." After breakfast, Keisha headed to school for what would be her last regular day as a high school junior. She walked through the hallways, past the trophy cases and college banners, thinking about how much had changed since she first walked through these doors. In her freshman year, she had been quiet and kept to herself mostly. She ate lunch alone and focused on her studies. But by sophomore year, she had found her voice. She joined the debate team, started tutoring other students in math, and even ran for student council. When she won the position of treasurer, some people were surprised, but Keisha had worked hard for it, going door to door to every classroom, talking to students about her ideas for fundraising and school improvements. Her best friend Riley had been there through it all. Riley was white with curly red hair and freckles, and she came from one of the wealthier families in town. But she and Keisha had bonded over their love of books and their shared dream of becoming doctors. Riley never made Keisha feel different or out of place, and she always stood up for her when others didn't. "Girl, I can't believe we're finally seniors next year," Riley said, sliding into the seat next to Keisha in their AP biology class. "I know, right? Feels like yesterday we were freshmen trying to figure out where the cafeteria was." Keisha laughed. Their teacher, Mrs. Patterson, overheard them. "You two have come so far. Keisha, I hope you know how proud we all are of you. Getting into State University with that scholarship, that's incredible." Keisha felt her cheeks warm with pride. The full academic scholarship to State University was her ticket to a better future. She had worked incredibly hard for it, maintaining a perfect 4.0 GPA while working part-time at the local library to help her mom with bills. But not everyone at school was happy about her success. There was a group of popular kids who seemed to take pleasure in making snide comments about her achievements. The leader of this group was Brittany Henderson, whose father owned the biggest car dealership in town. Brittany was the type of girl who had never wanted for anything and seemed to believe that made her better than everyone else. "I heard she only got that scholarship because of affirmative action," Keisha had overheard Brittany saying in the bathroom a few weeks ago. It's not fair that some people get special treatment. Riley had wanted to march right over and confront Brittany, but Keisha had held her back. "It's not worth it," she had said. "Let my success speak for itself." That afternoon, Keisha left school early to get ready for prom. She had saved every penny from her library job for months to afford her dress. When she and her mom had gone shopping, they had visited 3 different stores before finding the perfect one. It was an emerald green gown that made her skin glow and fit her like it was made just for her. "You look like a princess," her mom had said when she first tried it on. Now, as Keisha hung the dress carefully on her closet door, she felt that same flutter of excitement. Tonight was going to be special. She was going to prom solo, which had been her choice. A few boys had asked her, but none of them felt right. She would rather go alone and have fun with her friends than pretend to be interested in someone just to have a date. Her mom came home early from her first shift to help her get ready. They had planned this day for weeks. Angela had even watched YouTube tutorials on how to do fancy hairstyles so she could help her daughter look perfect. "Sit down, baby. Let me work on your hair," Angela said, pulling out the curling iron and hair products they had bought specially for tonight. As her mom worked on her hair, they talked about everything and nothing. Angela shared stories about her own prom night 20 years ago, and Keisha talked about her plans for college. The small apartment filled with laughter and the smell of hair products and perfume. "You know what I'm most proud of?" Angela said, carefully pinning a section of Keisha's hair. "It's not your grades or your scholarship, even though those are amazing. I'm proud of the person you've become. You're kind, you're strong, and you never let anyone dim your light." Keisha felt tears prick her eyes. "Mom, you're going to make me cry and ruin my makeup." "No crying allowed tonight," Angela laughed. "Tonight is for celebrating." By 6 p.m., Keisha was ready. She looked at herself in the full-length mirror her mom had borrowed from their neighbor. The emerald dress hugged her curves perfectly. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo with a few curls framing her face, and her makeup was flawless. She felt beautiful and confident. Her mom stood behind her, tears in her eyes. "Baby, you look absolutely stunning. Thank you, Mom, for everything. I know this wasn't cheap, and I know you worked extra hours to help pay for tonight." "You're worth every penny and every extra hour," Angela said, hugging her daughter carefully so as not to mess up her dress. "Now go show them what a real queen looks like." Riley arrived to pick her up in her dad's SUV, and the two friends took dozens of photos before heading to the Riverside Convention Center, where prom was being held. As they drove through town, Keisha felt a mix of excitement and nervousness building in her stomach. She had no idea that in just a few hours this night would change everything. Not just for her, but for her entire school. Sometimes the most ordinary evenings turn into the most extraordinary moments, and tonight was going to be one of those nights that people would talk about for years to come. The Riverside Convention Center looked like something out of a fairy tale. Silver and blue decorations hung from the ceiling, twinkling lights created a magical atmosphere, and round tables covered in white linens surrounded a large dance floor. Keisha stepped out of Riley's car and took a deep breath. This was it, the night she had been dreaming about for months. "Oh my goodness, this place looks amazing," Riley said, adjusting her pink dress as they walked toward the entrance. Keisha nodded, feeling a surge of excitement. The emerald green dress she had saved so hard for seemed to shimmer under the soft lighting of the venue. She felt beautiful, confident, and ready to make memories that would last a lifetime. As they approached the check-in table, Keisha noticed other students arriving in fancy cars with their dates. Some came in limousines, others in expensive sports cars. She and Riley had arrived in Riley's dad's regular SUV, but Keisha didn't feel any less special. She had learned long ago that it wasn't about how you arrived. It was about how you carried yourself once you got there. "Keisha Williams," she said to the student volunteer at the check-in table, who handed her a name tag with a table number. "You look gorgeous," the volunteer said with a genuine smile. "That color is perfect on you." "Thank you," Keisha replied, feeling her confidence grow even more. Inside the main ballroom, the DJ was playing popular songs, and students were already gathering in small groups, taking photos and chatting excitedly. The buffet table was set up along one wall, with fancy appetizers and a chocolate fountain that had several students already gathered around it. Keisha and Riley found their assigned table and set down their small purses before deciding to walk around and see who else had arrived. The room was filled with their classmates, all dressed up and looking very different from how they appeared during regular school days. "There's Jordan from our chemistry class," Riley pointed out. "And look, Mrs. Patterson is here as a chaperone. She looks so pretty in that dress." As they made their way through the crowd, Keisha felt eyes on her. Some students smiled and waved, complimenting her dress and telling her how beautiful she looked. But she also noticed a few stares that felt less friendly. She tried to ignore them and focus on enjoying herself. "Let's go get some of those fancy snacks," Riley suggested, pointing toward the refreshment table. They headed in that direction, weaving through groups of students who were busy taking selfies and group photos. The energy in the room was infectious. Everyone seemed to be having a great time, laughing and dancing to the music. But as they got closer to the food table, Keisha noticed Brittany Henderson standing there with her usual group of friends. Brittany was wearing an expensive-looking silver dress that probably cost more than Keisha's mom made in a month. Her blonde hair was styled in perfect waves, and her makeup looked like it had been done professionally. Brittany's friends included Chelsea, whose family owned a chain of restaurants in town, and Amber, who was dating the captain of the football team. They were all from wealthy families and had been friends since elementary school. They were known around school for their exclusive parties and their tendency to look down on anyone they considered beneath them. Keisha felt her stomach tighten a little, but she reminded herself of what her grandmother used to say. "Don't let other people's opinions rent space in your head for free." She was here to have fun, not to worry about what Brittany and her friends thought. "Just ignore them," Riley whispered, having noticed the group too. But as they approached the refreshment table, Keisha could hear Brittany's voice getting louder, clearly intending for others to hear what she was saying. "I just think it's interesting how some people can afford such expensive dresses when their families are supposed to be struggling," Brittany said, her eyes fixed on Keisha. "Makes you wonder where the money really came from." Her friends giggled, and a few other students nearby turned to look. Keisha felt her cheeks get warm, but she kept walking, determined not to let Brittany's comments ruin her night. Riley stepped closer to Keisha. "She's just jealous because you look better than she does," she whispered. Keisha managed a small smile. "It's okay. Let's just get some food." But Brittany wasn't done. As Keisha reached for a small plate, Brittany stepped directly into her path, blocking her way to the appetizers. "Well, well, well. Look who decided to grace us with her presence," Brittany said loudly, causing more students to turn and look. "I didn't realize they were selling tickets at a discount this year." The comment was clearly meant to embarrass Keisha in front of everyone. A few students pulled out their phones, sensing that drama was about to unfold. In today's world, everything ended up on social media, and high school drama was no exception. Keisha took a deep breath and tried to step around Brittany politely. "Excuse me, Brittany. I'd just like to get some food." "Oh, you'd like to get some food?" Brittany repeated, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "How interesting. I was just wondering how someone from your situation could afford to be here tonight. Did they have some kind of charity program I didn't know about?" The words hit Keisha like a slap. She could feel more students gathering around them, some with their phones out, others just watching to see what would happen. The music seemed to get quieter, or maybe it just felt that way because all of Keisha's attention was focused on this moment. Riley stepped forward, her face red with anger. "Brittany, that's completely out of line. You need to apologize right now." "I don't need to do anything," Brittany replied, her friends backing her up with nods and smirks. "I'm just asking a reasonable question." Keisha felt her heart pounding in her chest. Part of her wanted to respond with equally hurtful words. Part of her wanted to just walk away and pretend this wasn't happening, but there was nowhere to go. They were surrounded by classmates, all watching and waiting to see what she would do. "There's nothing to question," Keisha said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I worked and saved for months to be here, just like everyone else." "Oh, please," Brittany scoffed. "We all know how these things really work. Some people get special treatment, special opportunities, special help. It's not exactly fair to those of us who actually earn what we have." The comment was loaded with implications that made Keisha's blood boil. This wasn't just about prom tickets or dresses. This was about something much deeper and more hurtful. More students had gathered now, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed entertained by the drama. A few were definitely recording with their phones, probably planning to post the videos online later. "You know what, Brittany?" Keisha said, finding her voice getting stronger. "I think you should just move aside so I can enjoy my prom night." But Brittany had no intention of backing down. In fact, she seemed energized by the attention they were getting. She stepped even closer to Keisha, invading her personal space in a way that felt threatening. "I don't think you understand," Brittany said, her voice getting louder. "Some of us belong here and some of us are just pretending to belong." That's when it happened. Maybe Brittany intended it, or maybe she just got caught up in the moment. But she placed her hands on Keisha's shoulders and gave her a hard push, backward. Keisha stumbled, her arms flailing as she tried to catch her balance. She managed to stay on her feet, but just barely. The emerald dress that had made her feel so beautiful moments before was now slightly askew, and she felt completely humiliated in front of her entire class. The crowd around them had grown larger, and the phones were definitely recording now. This was the moment everyone would remember from prom night. Not the decorations or the music or the dancing, but this confrontation that had just turned physical. Brittany stood there with a satisfied smirk on her face, clearly expecting Keisha to either fight back or run away in embarrassment. Her friends were smiling too, enjoying what they saw as their friend's victory. But what happened next was something none of them saw coming. The ballroom fell completely silent. It was one of those moments where everything seems to freeze, the kind of silence that feels so heavy you can almost touch it. Everyone was staring at Keisha, waiting to see what she would do next. Some students had their phones ready, expecting her to either cry, run away, or maybe even push Brittany back. But Keisha didn't do any of those things. Instead, she took a slow, deep breath and straightened her emerald dress. She smoothed down the fabric where it had gotten wrinkled from Brittany's push, and then she did something that nobody expected. She looked directly at Brittany with calm, steady eyes and began to speak. "Brittany," she said, her voice clear and strong enough for everyone in the circle to hear. "I forgive you." You could have heard a pin drop. Brittany's smug expression started to fade, replaced by confusion. Her friends looked at each other like they weren't sure they had heard correctly. Even Riley stared at her best friend with wide eyes, amazed by what she was witnessing. The DJ must have noticed something was happening because the music got quieter. Students who had been dancing on the other side of the room started walking over to see what was going on. Within seconds, what had started as a small group of onlookers had grown into nearly half the students at prom. "I forgive you," Keisha repeated, her voice getting even stronger. "And I want to tell you why." Brittany opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She looked completely thrown off by this response. This wasn't how these situations usually went. When Brittany had confronted other students in the past, they either fought back or backed down. Nobody had ever responded like this. "I forgive you because I understand something that maybe you don't understand yet," Keisha continued, taking a small step forward. She wasn't being aggressive. If anything, her posture was calm and confident. Hurt people hurt people. When someone feels the need to tear another person down, it usually means they're dealing with their own pain inside. The crowd was growing, larger by the minute. Students were pulling out their phones, but now they weren't recording because they expected drama or a fight. They were recording because they sensed they were witnessing something special, something they would want to remember and share. "I don't know what's hurting you, Brittany," Keisha said, her voice filled with genuine compassion rather than anger. "Maybe it's pressure from your family. Maybe it's fear about the future. Maybe it's something completely different. But whatever it is that makes you feel like you need to put other people down to feel better about yourself. I'm sorry you're going through that." Riley was standing next to her best friend with tears in her eyes, feeling incredibly proud but also amazed. She had always known Keisha was special, but this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. This was the kind of moment that changes people. Some of the students in the crowd were nodding their heads, clearly moved by what they were hearing. Others looked uncomfortable, maybe realizing that they had been silent when they should have spoken up against bullying in the past. "But here's what I want everyone to understand," Keisha said, her voice getting even more confident as she turned slightly to address not just Brittany, but the entire crowd that had gathered. I earned my place here tonight, just like every single one of you earned yours. She gestured to her dress, which, despite being wrinkled from the push, still looked beautiful on her. I worked at the library for 6 months, saving every dollar I could to buy this dress. I worked late nights and weekends, sometimes choosing to work instead of hanging out with friends, because this night was important to me. The crowd was completely captivated. Even some of the adult chaperones had moved closer to listen. Mrs. Patterson, their biology teacher, was standing at the edge of the group with tears in her eyes. I maintained a 4.0 GPA while working those hours, Keisha continued. I studied for the SATs with borrowed books because I couldn't afford to buy my own prep materials. I applied for scholarships by writing essays late at night after my shifts at work, and I earned that scholarship to State University through my own hard work and dedication. A few students in the crowd started clapping softly, but Keisha held up her hand gently, indicating she wasn't finished yet. I'm not telling you this to brag or to make anyone feel bad, she said. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that everyone in this room has their own story. Everyone here has faced their own challenges and overcome their own obstacles to be here tonight. She turned back to face Brittany directly. You assumed things about me based on what you think you know about my family's financial situation. You made judgments about how I could afford to be here without knowing anything about the work I put in or the sacrifices I made. Brittany's face was getting redder by the minute. The confident, superior expression she had worn just moments before was completely gone. She looked like she wanted to disappear, but she was trapped in the center of this circle with nowhere to go. But the thing is, Keisha said, her voice softening slightly, I'm not angry with you, I feel sorry for you. Because someone who has to put other people down to feel good about themselves is someone who doesn't understand their own worth yet. The silence in the room was profound. Students were hanging on every word. Some were crying, others were nodding, in agreement, and many were recording what they were witnessing because they knew they were seeing something extraordinary. I hope someday you find the peace and self-love that will help you lift other people up instead of pushing them down, Keisha said, looking directly into Brittany's eyes. Because that's what strong people do. They use their strength to help others, not to hurt them. At this point, even some of Brittany's friends were looking uncomfortable. Chelsea was staring at the floor, and Amber had moved a few steps back, clearly wanting to distance herself from the situation. And until that day comes, Keisha continued, I want you to know that I'll be praying for you. I'll be hoping that you find whatever it is you need to heal the hurt inside you that makes you feel like you have to treat others this way. The crowd was completely silent, absorbing the power of what they had just heard. This wasn't just a response to bullying. This was a masterclass in grace, dignity, and strength. But Keisha wasn't done yet. She had one more thing to say, and it was perhaps the most important part of her entire response. To everyone else here tonight, she said, turning to address the crowd once more, I want you to remember something. When someone tries to make you feel small, when someone tries to tell you that you don't belong, when someone tries to convince you that you're not good enough, that says nothing about you and everything about them. Students were nodding and some were wiping away tears. The adult chaperones looked amazed by the maturity and wisdom they were witnessing from a 17-year-old. Don't let anyone else's insecurity or pain become your burden to carry, Keisha said firmly. Know your worth. Celebrate your achievements and never apologize for taking up space in places where you belong. With that, she smoothed her dress one final time, held her head high, and walked straight through the crowd toward Riley, who was beaming with pride and admiration. The students parted to let her through, many of them reaching out to touch her arm or whisper words of support as she passed. Behind her, Brittany stood frozen in place, her face burning with shame and embarrassment. Her friends had backed away even further, leaving her standing alone in the center of what had become her own humiliation. But this story was far from over. What happened next would surprise everyone even more. As Keisha walked away from the confrontation, something incredible started to happen. The silence that had filled the ballroom began to break, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of the usual chatter and gossip that followed high school drama, students began to clap. It started with just one person, Tyler, a quiet kid from Keisha's math class who had been bullied himself earlier in the year. He started clapping slowly, and then others joined in. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding, and some students were even cheering. "That was amazing," someone called out. "You're incredible, Keisha," another voice added. But the most shocking moment came when Derek, the captain of the football team and one of the most popular guys in school, stepped forward. Derek had never really paid attention to Keisha before, and he had certainly never stood up to Brittany when she had been mean to other students in the past. "Yo, Brittany," Derek said, his voice carrying across the room. "That was really messed up what you just did." All eyes turned to Derek. He was the kind of guy whose opinion mattered to a lot of students, especially the popular crowd. When he spoke, people listened. "I mean, seriously," Derek continued, shaking his head. "Keisha's been nothing but nice to everyone in this school. She tutors kids for free. She's always willing to help with homework, and she's probably got better grades than most of us. And you're gonna push her and try to embarrass her? That's not cool at all." Other students started nodding in agreement. Suddenly, people who had been silent bystanders for years were finding their voices. "Derek's right," said Nina, a girl from the art club. "I've seen Brittany be mean to people before and I never said anything. But that was wrong. We should have spoken up sooner." "Yeah," agreed Carlos, who played in the school band. "Remember when she made fun of that freshman last month? We all just stood there and watched. That wasn't right either." Meanwhile, Brittany was still standing in the center of what had become a very uncomfortable situation for her. Her face was bright red, and she looked like she wanted to disappear. She kept looking around for support from her friends, but even they seemed to be backing away from her. Chelsea, who had been Brittany's best friend since elementary school, was looking at the ground and wouldn't make eye contact. Amber had actually walked away completely and was now standing with a different group of students. "This is ridiculous," Brittany finally said, her voice shaky and defensive. "You're all acting like I committed some major crime. It was just a little push." "A little push?" Derek shot back. "Nah, it wasn't just a push. It was everything you said before the push. And it was the way you said it. That was straight up bullying, and everybody here knows it." More students began to speak up, and suddenly Brittany found herself facing criticism from people she had never expected to challenge her. "You know what?" said Jessica, a girl from the student council. "I'm tired of pretending like this kind of behavior is okay. We all know Brittany has been mean to people for years, and we've all just ignored it because we didn't want to deal with the drama." "That stops now," added Alex, another football player. "This is supposed to be a fun night for everyone. Nobody should have to deal with being bullied at their own prom." As this was happening, Keisha had reached Riley, who immediately wrapped her in a huge hug. "I am so proud of you," Riley whispered in her ear. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen anyone do." "I can't believe I actually said all that," Keisha replied, still feeling a bit shaky from the adrenaline. "It just felt like the right thing to do." "It was absolutely the right thing to do," said Mrs. Patterson, who had made her way over to them. "Keisha, I have been teaching for 15 years and I have never seen a student handle a difficult situation with such grace and maturity. You should be very proud of yourself." Other teachers and chaperones began approaching Keisha as well, all of them wanting to congratulate her on how she had handled the situation. But more importantly, her fellow students were coming up to her throughout the evening. "Keisha, I just wanted to say thank you," said a girl named Destiny, who was a sophomore. "Brittany made fun of my clothes last month and I was too scared to say anything. Seeing how you handled tonight makes me feel like maybe I can stand up for myself too. You helped me with algebra last year when I was failing," said another student named Marcus. "You never made me feel dumb even when I asked the same question 5 times. You're one of the nicest people in this school." As the evening continued, something beautiful started to happen. Students who had never talked to each other before were striking up conversations. The invisible social barriers that had divided the school for so long seemed to be breaking down, at least for tonight. Meanwhile, the videos that students had taken of the confrontation were already making their way to social media. But instead of the usual mean-spirited posts that often came from high school drama, These videos were being shared with captions like, "This girl is amazing," and "Everyone needs to see this." Within hours, the videos had been shared hundreds of times. By the next morning, they would be shared thousands of times. People from all over the country were commenting on Keisha's response, praising her maturity and grace. "This young lady is going places," one comment read. "I wish I had half her confidence and wisdom when I was her age," said another. "This is how you handle bullies with class," wrote someone else. But perhaps the most surprising development of the evening was what happened with Brittany herself. After being confronted by so many of her classmates, she had retreated to the bathroom with Chelsea, who had finally decided to check on her friend. "Brittany, you know they're right," Chelsea said gently. "What you did tonight was really mean, and it's not the first time." Brittany was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. "I don't know why I did that," she said. I saw her looking so confident and beautiful, and I got jealous. My parents have been fighting constantly, and I'm stressed about college applications, and I just took it out on her." "That's not an excuse," Chelsea said firmly. "You hurt someone who didn't deserve it. You need to apologize." "She'll never forgive me after what I did," Brittany said. "Did you hear what she said out there?" Chelsea asked. "She already forgave you, but you still need to make it right." Back in the main ballroom, the mood had completely shifted. What had started as a tense confrontation had somehow transformed into one of the most positive and unifying experiences many of these students had ever shared. The DJ, who had been watching everything unfold, made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've been DJing school events for 10 years and I've never seen anything like what just happened here tonight. Let's hear it one more time for Keisha Williams, who just showed all of us what real strength looks like." The entire ballroom erupted in cheers and applause. Students were chanting Keisha's name, and she felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. As the evening wound down and students began to leave, Brittany appeared at Keisha's table. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked genuinely remorseful. "Keisha," she said quietly, "can I talk to you for a minute?" What happened next would be the final chapter in a night that had already changed everything. Keisha looked up at Brittany, seeing her red eyes and genuinely sorry expression. Riley tensed up beside her, ready to protect her best friend if this was another trick. But something in Brittany's face told Keisha this was different. "Okay," Keisha said simply. "We can talk." They walked to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the other students. Brittany was trembling slightly, and it was clear that this conversation was taking all of her courage. "I don't even know where to start," Brittany began, her voice barely above a whisper. "What I did tonight was horrible. What I said was horrible. And the worst part is, this isn't the first time I've been mean to you or to other people." Keisha listened quietly, letting Brittany speak. "You were right about what you said out there," Brittany continued, tears starting to flow again. "About hurt people hurting people. My parents are getting divorced, and they've been fighting constantly, for months. My dad moved out last week, and my mom spends all day crying or yelling at me about my grades and college applications." Keisha felt a pang of sympathy, but she didn't interrupt. "I know that's not an excuse," Brittany said quickly. "I know that. My problems at home don't give me the right to take it out on other people. But I was just so angry and frustrated, and when I saw you tonight looking so beautiful and confident, I got jealous. You seem to have everything figured out, and I feel like my whole life is falling apart." "Brittany," Keisha said gently, "I don't have everything figured out. Nobody our age does. I've had my own struggles too." "But you handle everything so well," Brittany said. "You work, you get perfect grades, you're kind to everyone, even people who don't deserve it. Like me." They stood in silence for a moment, before Keisha spoke again. "You know what my grandmother used to tell me? She said that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. I should have remembered that applies to you too. How can you be so nice to me after what I did?" Brittany asked. "Because holding on to anger would only hurt me," Keisha replied. "And because I believe people can change if they really want to." "I do want to change," Brittany said earnestly. I want to be better, but I don't know how. It starts with this conversation, Keisha said. It starts with admitting you were wrong and wanting to do better. That's not easy, and you're doing it. Over the next few weeks, the incident at prom became the talk of not just Westbrook High School, but the entire town. The videos had gone viral on social media, with millions of views and thousands of comments praising Keisha's response. Local news stations picked up the story, and soon Keisha was being interviewed about her experience. She used every opportunity to talk about the importance of treating others with kindness and standing up against bullying. I hope people understand that this isn't just about what happened to me, she told one reporter. This is about creating a culture where everyone feels safe and valued. We all have the power to make that happen. The story caught the attention of college admissions officers across the country. Keisha received calls from universities she had never even applied to, offering her full scholarships. A motivational speaking agency reached out, asking if she would be interested in sharing her story at schools and conferences. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from other students who had been bullied. Keisha received hundreds of messages from young people telling her that her example had given them the courage to stand up for themselves or to speak out against bullying they witnessed. Your video made me realize I don't have to just accept being treated badly, wrote one girl from California. I reported the kids who were bullying me, and the school actually did something about it. I used to be mean to other kids because I thought it would make me popular, wrote a boy from Texas. After seeing your video, I apologized to everyone. I had hurt, and now I try to be the kind of person who lifts others up instead of tearing them down. At Westbrook High School, the administration was forced to take a hard look at their policies around bullying. The viral video had brought unwanted attention to the fact that incidents like this had been happening for years without serious consequences. Principal Johnson called an all-school assembly the Monday after prom. What happened at prom this weekend has shown us that we need to do better, he announced. We're implementing new anti-bullying policies, and we're bringing in counselors to help students deal with conflicts in healthier ways. The school also started a peer mediation program, where students like Keisha could help resolve conflicts between their classmates. They brought in speakers to talk about empathy, respect, and building inclusive communities. But the most surprising change was in Brittany herself. True to her word, she was determined to become a better person. She started by apologizing to every student she could remember being mean to over the years. Some accepted her apology easily, others were more skeptical, but she kept trying. I know I can't undo the hurt I've caused, she told Keisha one day at lunch. But I want to spend the rest of high school trying to make up for it. Brittany joined the peer mediation program and started volunteering at the elementary school, helping younger kids with reading. She used her social influence for good, organizing fundraisers for families in need, and speaking out against bullying whenever she saw it. I never thought I'd say this, Riley told Keisha one afternoon, but I actually think Brittany has really changed. She stopped those guys from picking on the new kid yesterday, and she didn't even make a big deal about it. As graduation approached, Keisha reflected on how much had changed since that night at prom. The school felt different, more inclusive, more kind. Students were more likely to stand up for each other, and bullying incidents had dropped dramatically. Keisha was chosen as the valedictorian, and in her graduation speech, she talked about the power of choosing love over hate, forgiveness over revenge, and courage over silence. 6 months ago, I could have responded to cruelty with more cruelty, she told the crowd of families and students. But I chose a different path. And that choice didn't just change my life. It changed our entire school community. That's the power each of us has every single day. We can choose to build others up or tear them down. We can choose to be part of the problem or part of the solution. After graduation, Keisha went on to State University, where she studied social work and education. She became a sought-after motivational speaker, sharing her story at schools across the country. She always ended her speeches with the same message. You have more power than you realize to change the world around you. Use it wisely. Brittany also went to college, where she studied psychology and became an advocate for anti-bullying programs. She often spoke alongside Keisha at events, sharing her perspective as someone who had been a bully and found a way to change. "I'm grateful that Keisha showed me grace that night," Brittany would tell audiences. "But more than that, I'm grateful. She showed me that it's never too late to become the person you want to be." Years later, when people talked about the Westbrook High School class of 2025, they didn't remember who was prom king and queen. They didn't remember what the decorations looked like or what songs the DJ played. They remembered the night when one 17-year-old girl chose forgiveness over revenge, and how that choice rippled out to change an entire community. They remembered that sometimes the most powerful response to darkness is to shine a light, and that real strength isn't about fighting back. It's about lifting others up. And they remembered that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear emerald green prom dresses and carry themselves with grace, dignity, and an unshakable belief that people can be better than their worst moments.